Welcome to Analytics Nexus. Thanks for joining us for Sid Shah's presentation, Getting Customer Loyalty Right. Sid is head of analytics and insight for Conde Nast based in London. He leads a team of data analysts and managers servicing brands including Vogue, GQ, Wired, Glamour, and Vanity Fair. Sid's focus is building and maintaining data products that generate customer insights. This also involves redefining and driving audience-centric KPIs using integrated research and digital data. Prior to Conde Nast, Sid worked in analytics both in-house and agency side for business in finance, media, and retail sectors. In these roles, he helped develop digital measurement frameworks, improved data collection via enhanced tracking and integration, and delivered insights driving digital strategies.
Hi, thanks for choosing Getting Customer Loyalty Right from an analytics point of view at the Analytics Nexus 2020 conference. My name is Sid Shah, and I am the head of analytics and insight at Conde Nast. For those who don't know, Conde Nast is a global media firm with brands like Vogue, GQ, Glamour, Wired, New Yorker, and so on. My role revolves around focusing on building exciting data products and focusing on customer insights and supporting the business on helping achieve audience growth and engagement for some of our titles. Talking about customers and customer loyalty, customer loyalty is quite an important aspect for us as a business, and we focus our analytics and insights and deliveries on driving these loyal customers. And that makes me think about one of the quotes, Steve Jobs, and he says, and I quote him, "Get closer than ever to your customers, so close that you can tell them what they need well before they realize it themselves." That's quite a statement in itself. And if I may try and interpret this on what this means, is, at least from a data point of view, is try and understand your customers better so that you can drive and change your products and or services that can help you drive loyal customers. Now, you might think, how do you do that? And how would a business understand the customers better? And there's no prizes in guessing, but this would be via data. Obviously, data would help us understand these customers, understand the behavior of these customers at different touch points for different businesses, and help serve the business better in delivering and achieving business goals. And these loyal customers are quite important for the business. And as I said, in my role at Conde Nast, these loyal customers drive tons of revenue for the business. And loyalty in itself is a big market. There was a study done recently by a marketing study where loyalty management market was predicted to be around $8 billion by US dollars by the end of 2026, which is a huge market in itself. And the focus on the loyalty management market would be around customer loyalty. There's another element of customer and channel intention as well in the report, but the focus would be around customer loyalty. And the big and small businesses, we're doing a lot of investments around driving loyalty for their businesses. Hence, we will be focusing here in three main areas for this presentation and for the session, is around how, as a analytics team, should we look at customer loyalty measurement? What are the data frameworks as a team and as an organization is required to support the customer loyalty side of things? And how can, as an analytics and data team, can we generate business impact that would help to underline profits for the business? Hence, we focus on the customer loyalty and measurement. This area is quite important for us to understand. And there are different ways of looking at this. But if we take a pause for a second and think about customer loyalty, how would you define customer loyalty even before we start talking about measurement? And one of the definitions I quite like is customer loyalty is an emotional bonding between an organization and its customers. Again, it's quite an interesting statement in itself. Customer loyalty has an emotional bonding, and for us as an analytics and data folks, is how do you measure this? And we'll come to that in a second. But why, as a business, and why do these business needs these loyal customers? What are the benefits of these loyal customers? Obviously, these loyal customers would be doing repeat purchases. These customers would have higher retention, and I help the teams reduce the marketing cost for the business. These group of customers are potential customers for a different range of products, and you can cross-sell and upsell a different range of products or services from your businesses. These customers are also highly engaged customers. In our media business, some of the loyal users are the people who consume our content twice or thrice more than some of the other customers would do. Also, more often than not, we have seen these loyal customers forgive poor service. If you think of the statement or the definition there, then emotional bonding does have an element to it where these group of people would forgive poor service and are probably also be an advocate for your business. And this advocacy is quite important for us. Or from an analytics point of view, you think about how do you measure all these things? And that brings us to the customer loyalty measurement side of things. Obviously, the emotional element of it can be measured by the NPS scores to try and understand who are these loyal enthusiasts or the promoters that fuel and support growth for the business. There is a transactional element involved around retention rate to understand customer loyalty, and you can understand customer loyalty by the repeat purchases, customer lifetime value, and so on. For if your business is around media or like us, or if it's based on engagement, then frequency of usage and time spent around your product or service is an element where you can try and understand customer loyalty. Also, there is an element of advocacy involved. Loyal customers are the ones who would go and promote and have a good review of your products on the social media or on review sites, and would bring organic new customers to your business. So that's another element to look at. The last element is around tolerance. As I mentioned before, these group of users are generally try to overlook poor service and give feedback. So there's an element of that as well. Now, you can think of these measures when you're thinking about customer loyalty measurement. What I also like is to add a framework around this, and the framework developed by the business or Broadway breaks it down into emotional and behavioral side of customer loyalty. The emotional side is more focused around advocacy, and the behavioral side will be focusing more around retention and purchasing. These are more of the transactional side of the data. It also breaks it down into subjective and objective element. And based on how your business is and how it's set up, you can try and understand your loyalty measurement within this framework. What this framework also helps us is also spot gaps in our measurement. More often than not, we try and measure some of the metrics which are quite aligned to the business or quite obvious for a business, and we don't take the full picture, like the subjective element of things or the objective element side of things. So this framework helps you understand if you're taking into consideration different elements of customer loyalty. So do take some time. I will attach a link for more details if you'd like to spend some time on this side of things. Talking about framework brings us to the next part of the session is around data framework. To enable and to measure this customer loyalty or different element of customer data, you need to think about how would you have to set up your data infrastructure that helps and supports the business and helps support you develop and measure some of these customer loyalty elements. Before we talk about framework, it's important to also think about the strategy side of things. As the data teams, you may already have data from different customer touch points available at your disposal that might be delivering some great results, but you also need to think about what is your data strategy, and are you just drowning your customers by your clients or your internal stakeholders with tons of data. So thinking of and focusing or revisiting your data strategy is quite critical when you talk about data framework around customer loyalty. the areas I think we should be focusing on is what are you trying to achieve? What is the business trying to achieve? And how, when you're setting up a data framework, what would you like to achieve within this framework and how that's aligned with the business goals? What does your framework involve? And does it only involve collection and storage, or does it also involve data transformation and data enrichment? Based on this, you look at different touch points in the different platforms that may be required to that. Are you trying to build a single source of truth? Are you trying to build multiple sources of truth? At times we all follow and try and get a single source of truth that is relevant and important for most businesses. However, there might be business or use cases where multiple source of truth may be the way to go ahead or get initial results for the business. And the governance and compliance side of things is quite important as well. So before we talk about frameworks and building a data infrastructure, think about your strategy and how are you focusing on some of the activities, and are the activities aligned to the objective of your data strategy. When I build a framework, or there are 4 key elements for a customer data framework. The first one is around platforms, or a platform or multiple platforms, depending on your business is. And when I talk about platforms, I talk about customer records, I talk about behavioral data, the likes of Google and Adobe Analytics, the user journey data, you get the interaction data you get from your maybe store touch points, or SMS or text messages, all this data, and managing of that data, and how that is collected and stored and managed on a single or multiple platforms. The distribution side of things, how is this data then analyzed by your teams and visualized by the business in terms of, and the information shared with the rest of the business in terms of insights and reports, is another element of it we should be thinking about when building and building a customer data framework. The other element is around, and the important side is around integration and segmentation. We have, as I mentioned, we may have more than one data source, customer data available at our disposal. Or there might be online and offline data. There might be qualitative data from your surveys, internal or external surveys done. How we think about, are you trying to integrate that into a single customer record or not? That's something that should be reviewed while we're handling and managing customer data, and then grouping and clustering this data to get more benefits out of the customer data framework. Lastly is around process. How are you managing the audit process or control and change management internally within your data infrastructure, or also externally with your external vendors, or within the business where there is change management involved? How are you managing the process, and is your platform and your data structure infrastructure set up to adapt to these changes as a business? The other element which is quite important when you talking about data framework is customer privacy. Obtaining consent is key. Customer privacy law around UK and Europe and now in California are quite prevalent. Consent is quite an important aspect of it. You need to try and ensure and work with your business and legal partners to understand if the data you're managing and handling was obtained with user consent. The element of data handling, process and storage is another element of customer data. As with customer data, you might be handling some sensitive information, some private information or transactional information, which is quite sensitive. And how are you managing this process and storing this data is an important aspect of it when you're building a data framework. With some of these privacy laws, at least in Europe, there is an element of right to be forgotten, and where it impacts the data analytics team is a customer can request their data to be deleted from multiple systems, and as an analytics team, this may come in our remit as well, especially around Google Analytics or Adobe Analytics, where some customer information, direct or indirect, may be involved, or some of the survey platforms information where its customer data may be involved. Is your infrastructure built and can adapt to these changes in regulation, and can adapt to these requests that may come in future where a data may be deleted? So these are some of the areas you should be thinking about when you're building a data framework, and when you're talking about customer information and managing this information. When you build this information, this brings on to our next topics around generating the business impact. We have created this in great infrastructure and that supports the business, or it's ready to support business. But what we should be thinking about is this great infrastructure. How is it aligned to the business, and how can we maximize this business impact? And the first thing we need to try and understand is how and what these business users might be asking and would be looking for in the business. Before that, I would like to share a survey done by McKinsey recently. And what this survey was done is trying to understand is how maturity of the analytics teams impacts business performance. And what the survey showed, and the results were, the mature the analytics teams are, the greater impact it would be on business performance or business units performance. And obviously, if you are trying to affect business performance, you need great infrastructure, great measurement strategies we've just talked about, but it's also an element of understanding and aligning with the business. And what I mean by that is to understand what this business users need. And some of the questions I think these business users, internal or external, will be asking when managing and looking at customer data or customer loyalty data is, who are my customers? What are they doing on my site or at my store or so on? How many of these users are loyal, and how many of my users or customers are not loyal? Why would they act or not act in a certain way? As a business, people may have expectations for users to follow a certain journey. Why would they follow a certain journey or not follow a certain journey? These are the questions they might ask, and expect data and analytics team to answer some of these questions. And we should be well prepared to answer some of these questions. And also, lastly, what are they telling us, and or how are they reacting to some of the changes we are making within the business? So as a data and analytics teams, we should be well prepared to answering these questions, and which we may already be answering some of these questions in our day-to-day work. Answering business questions is an important part of it, and it just doesn't stop there for us. We need to also align that with the business more to have a greater impact on the business bottom lines or performances. And what I mean by that is establish what the business or users or your internal or external users would want to know about your customers. What is the type of information they're expecting from you? It could be some of the questions I've just talked about, or it could be some other questions. We should be thinking of that. Also try and understand how performance will be measured. Sometimes it's in the business projects and we don't ask some of these valid questions around, or try and understand the KPIs for the business. Sometimes we do have strategic KPIs, but we don't focus on the tactical KPIs that might be relevant for that particular team or business unit. So try and get that right and align that with the business, and make sure you have these strategic and tactical KPIs to measure customer loyalty. Try and understand how the business would use the data, how this information or the great insights you and your teams are sharing would be used by the business, and see if you have the right resources to support that. Also, it's important to create and validate some of the hypotheses we may have around this, and then probably share those ideas back with the business stakeholders to deliver the results for that business. The last element is around gathering feedback. Sometimes we do great work, but we don't, after the work is done, we just don't go back to the business and ask the question, how did it impact, and did it deliver the results which was meant to be, and and gather that feedback from the stakeholder, and try and ask those questions to align with the business to get that maximum impact. I have couple of use cases which I would like to share. In fact, 4 use cases to maximize that impact with the business. And the first one is around customer insights delivery. As a data and analytics team, delivering insights about the customers is one of our primary aspects of our role. While we're looking at and when we're delivering regular or ad hoc insights to the business, think of the data we have at our disposals. Is it of the highest quality? Is our data have any inconsistencies involved? Have we taken care of those within the audit processes, and have we considered that while we're doing insights is an element we should be thinking about when we get an insight request and we get a brief from our client about or a question about customers or a challenge. Sometimes we naturally go onto the platform we love or the platform we use daily, like Google Analytics, Hotjar, Adobe Analytics. We also think about the other aspects of the data that may be available within the organizations, customer survey data that might be available, and see if we can combine that together, if that's not already been combined together in your warehouse, and see if that can help answer that business questions or the question the stakeholder is looking at. All that is in place. Is your insights and delivering those strategic questions? Is it answering the strategic questions, and would that deliver the business impact which is meant to do? Review this process, and that's something I try and do in my organization to try and maximize business impact on a regular basis. The other angle I'll be thinking about is the customer experience side of things. There are more and more businesses have an element of customer experience, sometimes as the primary way to measure customer engagement and loyalty, or try and understand how customer experience business aligns with your business model. Try and identify what are the processes involved that could impact customer experiences, and from a data point of view or an analytics point of view, try and understand if we're measuring these processes and if there are gaps involved within this process or not. Try and realign your analysis, help business implement those changes, and then help you measure some of the changes that the business are expecting to drive some of these results. The third angle I would like to, or the use case I would like to talk about, is around conversions. Customer data is quite important for driving conversions. Customer data or analyzing these customer data can help you understand different behaviors and patterns about your customer journey, and that can help you then not just understand but predict some of the customer behavior and their next best action. And depending on what type of your business objective of the business is, or the product on offer is, you can then predict the next action and support the business in either delivering relevant message for your customers, or target them with a recommended product for that particular challenge. So this is another area where even in the media world is quite pertinent for us, is help the data, use the data and analytics at disposal to understand and then drive conversions for the business. So that's another use case should be thinking about in using customer data to drive loyalty. The fourth and the last piece or the use case I want to focus on is taking your analysis further in this customer segmentation world. Obviously, when we talk about customer loyalty and analytics, we'll be measuring customer or loyal customers to understand their behavior and pattern and do certain actions as we talked about. But it's also important to understand other group of users, and these other group of users, as you can see here, could be the non-loyal users, the users who don't interact as you expect, and can be grouped as non-loyal users based on the definitions for the business or clients, and try and understand their behavior and see if that differs. It gives you great results in terms of understanding how that behavior is different, and probably tailor your marketing or your company's effort to support and bring them to a loyal user zone. There may be users who are satisfied but not loyal. So, and what I mean by that is, if your survey data and your behavior and your transactional data, the emotional and the behavioral data, if they're connected, you can try and understand customers who are scoring very high on the satisfaction service scores, but are actually not purchasing or using your product often. Try and understand their behavior and see how that is different for your business or for your client. Lastly, if it's relevant for your business, then there might be an element of price and convenience involved. There might be users who are visiting and using your services because of the price, or because of the convenience if there are physical stores involved. So if there's an element of that to your business or for your client, then try and group these users and try and understand that. This information gives you a rich overlay of what these, not just the loyal users and what they're doing, but also the non-loyal users doing, and how that behavior is different, and how we can then support the business in changing the behavior for these loyal users, non-loyal users to a loyal user. The other element of that is to looking at the customer journey as well. Not all your customers might be in the low and non-loyal zone. They might be at a different states of a customer life cycle. They might be either in the awareness or a purchase phase, or might be in the advocacy phase. So working closely with your marketing folks and try and understand what on where these customers are, which group are they in, and try and analyzing the data from this angle can also help drive and maximize business results for your clients or your internal businesses as well. As we have talked about and we've seen, customer data is gold, and I think it's no surprise. We've heard it quite a few times over the last few years. Data is the new oil. It's gold. Customer data is gold. But my take on this is customer data is great and can help drive great things, but context is quite important, and this is where data analytics also needs to focus on, is not just delivering great customer data and information, but also giving context to the business on how this impacts our business and how it drives performance or drives change for our business. So I think that context is quite important, and it's something we should be thinking about while we are delivering some key insights back to the business as well. In summarizing, what I've talked about in the last few slides is getting to drive great customer loyalty. To get the loyalty right, we need to think about the customer measurement, ensure that the customer measurement cycle is correct, ensure that if we're looking at both emotional and the behavioral side of the customer loyalty, ensure our measurement strategy is in place. Think about all data sets available. As I talked about in my previous slides, behavioral data, data from sources like the surveys, data from offline platforms. Integrating that data together can give you rich customer insights, which will help the business drive customer loyalty. So think about all the data sets available at your disposal. Align all your analysis and insights to business goals. Try and understand what the business is trying to achieve, and try and cater your analysis to answer some of the strategic questions, and that supports business goals in that sense. And think ahead. I think when we're building the data framework and infrastructure, it is quite important to focus on the next level of analytics. Not one aspect is around advanced analytics techniques that can help us do predictions, can help us support the AI and the other side of the advanced analytics world, but also around the privacy side of things as well. As I talked about privacy laws, this would be more pertinent in the coming years, where privacy would be a heart of every element of customer data. So far, analytics and data team hasn't been involved, but I think that would be more pertinent. So think ahead if your data and infrastructure is capable and flexible enough to support some of these business processes and changes that may happen. And lastly, ask questions, and lots of questions. And as I've mentioned in my slides, as sometimes the analytics teams, we are great and enthusiastic and start driving some of the customer insights and processes and infrastructure, but we don't ask these questions to the business. So I would encourage you to ask more questions, try and understand and ask questions around how your work matters to the teams and the businesses. Try and understand if the insights and the information you've delivered did create an impact, and also try and gather feedback from your stakeholders, internal or external. Asking questions would help you understand and deliver better results and can have great impact for the business. With that, that's a wrap from me. Thank you for taking some time to listen to the session at the Analytics Nexus 2020 conference. My name is Sid Shah. You can follow me on Twitter at Mr. Sid Shah. And thank you and have a great day.
Thanks so much for watching this presentation. Join us on the Analytics Nexus Slack to talk with our presenters about this topic and more.